With the help of technology, it is now easier for people to send a message to someone, take pictures, locate addresses, and even find the perfect person to date. In the middle of the night, in a messy room, a guy is asleep over his laptop. While sleeping, he accidentally spills soda over the device, messing up his programming code. Then, a woman's face morphs on the screen. A few days ago, a guy with glasses named Peg goes to school with his tall and scrawny friend, Simon. Although classes haven't started yet, Simon has dragged Peg into campus, and both are headed toward the Mobile Software Developers Club room. Inside, intern president Stanley sits in front of a desk, and beside him is Celia. Simon asks where the other club members are, but Stanley waves it off and plays a video of him and Peg being humiliated in school. Because of this negative reputation, Stanley kicks him out of the club. Thanks to Celia, Stanley gives Simon a chance to defend himself, but Simon is not interested and instead surrenders his jump drive and keycard. With one hard look at Celia, Simon storms out. Outside, Peg tries comforting Simon, but it only annoys him. They then spot the lacrosse team, forcing them to hide in the bushes. The team mingles with the practicing cheerleaders, and a guy named Bash hugs the cheerleader Desiree. All the while, Peg mutters his disbelief at Desiree's dating life. Bash eyes another girl, annoying Desiree so much that she leads him away. Simon and Peg can't help but be irritated at Bash. Afterward, they walk to Simon's house. Outside, his parents are arguing over the installation of a video intercom. While Peg and Simon's mom enter the house, Simon checks up on his dad. He tries opening up about his tough day, but he gets a flat response. In Simon's room, the two are checking women out online. Peg, frustrated, flings Simon's iPad and vents about how unfair it is that they can't get girls. He's surprised that Simon's Indian friend managed to get a girlfriend, thinking it's fake. However, this gives him the idea that he and Simon can create a fake girlfriend. At first, Simon is apprehensive, but Peg continues convincing him about the opportunities the computer could give them. Then, Peg suggests they construct a girlfriend using body parts from different girls online. Eventually, Simon gives in, and they construct their fake girlfriends. Simon also hacks Facebook to change the dates on their fake photos and creates an iPhone app for calls and texts to make everything look more authentic. When he's done, Simon names his fake girlfriend Lily. The news of their girlfriends takes the school by storm. Simon and Peg walk confidently to school the next day. Stanley intercepts them to ask about their girlfriends, and Peg fields questions effortlessly. When Stacy, Peg's fake girlfriend, calls him, they leave Stanley behind. During English class, Celia apologizes to Simon for letting Stanley kick him out. She wants him to stay because she wants to win a competition, but with Simon gone, that chance is out of the window. Peg sits next to Desiree when Stacy sends him romantic texts, giving Desiree a chance to notice. On the other hand, Lily texts Simon with inappropriate compliments, disgusting as scandalized Celia. At the same time, Desiree receives inappropriate texts from Bash and she sees him acting it out in class. Annoyed, she instead asks Peg who he's texting. When she hears about his girlfriend, she asks to talk after class, leaving a stammering Peg. Simon's situation isn't looking good. Lily's texts escalate into a call disrupting the class, prompting the teacher to have them confiscated during class time. The bell rings and everyone leaves Simon on the floor, getting disgusted looks from Celia and ignoring Bash as the guy hits him in the head with a lacrosse ball. Apparently, Simon mixed up the messages meant for Stacy and Lily. He asks for Peg's phone, but he's unwilling to surrender it since the sweet texts worked on Desiree. When he leaves the room, Bash pins Simon against the wall for annoying him. To compensate, Simon is forced to do Bash's homework for a month. From a distance, Peg and Desiree leave while Simon stays helpless. When he arrives home, Simon cries and throws away his phone because of Lily's messages. He stares at his laptop and deletes the code. Lily calls him and he wishes she was real. But just when he's given up, he thinks of an idea. During dinner, he rants about it to his parents. Instead of making a mindless robot, he should turn Lily into a dynamic AI that acts like an actual person. His mom doesn't understand, but she tells him they'll be gone for the weekend and he'll have the house to himself. Without finishing dinner, Simon returns to his room and gets a soda can before sitting in front of his laptop. He begins writing a code to make Lily act more authentic, referencing websites as source materials. He tweaks her parameters and tests different responses, and his results yield a Lily that's become too quirky, detached, and clingy. Exhausted, he falls asleep in front of his laptop and accidentally spills the soda. The device shortens and the code modifies itself to make a perfect Lily. The next morning, Simon wakes up to his mom yelling goodbye. He then receives a good morning text from Lily. When Simon reaches school, he rechecks Lily's message and finds that she's working as intended. She even knows he's upset with Peg because Simon made her intuitive and sensitive. Overjoyed, Simon lets Lily convince him to skip English class and talk instead. The two text at the cafeteria. Simon overhears that Bash and Desiree broke up when she suddenly walks past him, with Peg trailing behind, looking love-struck. He and Peg exchange looks, but Desiree calls Peg not to engage with Simon. When Peg leaves, Bash arrives and snatches Simon's phone. He reads Lily's text and threatens Simon that he has until Friday to finish his English assignment and give it to him at his party. He also threatens to steal Lily and be intimate with her. About Desiree entertaining Peg, Bash is dismissive, but if Peg touches her, he and Simon will face the consequences. Then, one of the bullies drops jelly over Simon's lap, laughing before leaving with his friends. Outside, Simon sees Peg carrying Desiree's things to her car. Peg tries interrupting Desiree's conversation with the girl to her annoyance. But when she sees Bash's car parked nearby, she comes close to Peg and says she knows he wants to kiss her. Seeing this, Bash says he doesn't care. Desiree continues to tempt Peg by telling him to come over to her place and help her with homework, and he might just get lucky. In his room, Simon finds his laptop sticky with soda. Then he notices Lily posted photos of them together, surprising him so much that he asks her how they were taken. Lily coyly responds she was there with him, confusing Simon. When he goes to the bathroom to take a shower, his laptop gets busy coding Lily into existence, shorting itself in the process. Startled by the power loss, Simon crawls out of the bathroom when a girl appears before him. He asks who she is, but Simon can't believe she's Lily and he's convinced he's dreaming. Lily kisses him, but he throws up afterward in disbelief. Meanwhile, Peg helps Desiree with her homework. When he's finished, Desiree shoots him a stern look while he stammers about wanting to be intimate. Desiree reminds him he has a girlfriend, and she refuses to do something unless Peg breaks up with Stacy and deletes all their photos. While she lets him leave, Desiree warns him she's not going to wait all night, so Peg rushes to Simon's house. At home, Simon and Lily are in the shower together. Peg lets himself inside to borrow Simon's laptop and delete the photos. However, the laptop doesn't work even when being charged, so Peg takes it and leaves a note for Simon instead. Simon and Lily don't notice this as they continue being intimate. Peg reaches Desiree's house, where he waves the laptop for her to see, but she tells him he's too late. He tries convincing her to reconsider, but she's firm and leaves him hanging. When Simon wakes up the next day, he's relieved Lily is real and still there. He takes Lily downstairs for breakfast and she devours the peanut butter and bread. Throughout the day, they enjoy each other's company by playing with water guns, watching movies, and making forts out of sheets. Concurrently, Peg still can't get Simon's laptop to work, but after some time, it finally boots up. Peg takes this chance to break up with Stacy. He goes through their photos together one more time before deleting everything. Afterward, he finally notices the program running Lily. Not knowing what exactly is happening, he changes Lily's parameters, giving her more passion and making her emotional and strong. The program updates and Lily becomes aggressive. The next day, Simon wakes up and finds Lily interrogating him about when they'll break up the same way Peg broke up with Stacy. Simon mentions that Peg's pursuing a real girl named Desiree and says Stacy's someone Peg just made up. But Lily complains she too isn't real. Simon tries comforting her, but the more he speaks, the more agitated Lily becomes. Now emotional, Lily asks him if he loves her and makes him promise he won't leave her for another girl. She also asks him to stay, but he refuses as he'll have more than one absence. Lily then grabs the phone and calls the school, lying about Simon's fever. Getting the green light, Lily plans their morning. At the school cafeteria, Peg sits with Desiree's clique and pretends to laugh at Desiree's story. Bash comes to their table, conceding that Desiree has made her point. He confesses things are over between him and the other girl, but Desiree keeps a list of other ladies she's jealous of. Triggered, Peg gets up and yells at Bash to knock it off, but Desiree tells him to keep quiet. Bash says he's done fooling around. Desiree accepts him back, dismissing Peg like trash. But before he can leave, Bash snatches Simon's laptop. Simon awakens again and sees the note Peg left about borrowing his laptop. He notices the smell of pancakes and tries leaving the room, only to discover he's locked inside, confusing him. Peg texts him that they have a serious problem. Lily comes up with a plate of pancakes. Simon, now dressed, confirms she locked him inside, reasoning it's for the best since most high school relationships end. Lily declares she just wants them to stay together. Lily cheerfully says yes when Simon asks if he'll continue to be locked inside. Things go awry when Simon asserts himself. Driven by paranoia, Lily gets angry, thinking he's just looking for an excuse to leave her. Simon gets progressively scared as Lily demands him to stay home. Lily leaves, slamming the door, but immediately returns inside pleading and apologizing for how she acted. But as soon as Simon says baby while helping her clean up, Lily gets angry again at the perceived disrespect. Jealous, she asks who else Simon calls baby before storming out again. Peg continues texting him. Simon tries opening the window, but Lily catches him and slams into the bed, handcuffing him to it. In the school parking lot, Peg sees Bash and Desiree making out. Because of the dire situation, Peg is forced to call Simon, but it goes straight to voicemail. Frustrated, Peg decides to come over to Simon's house. While Peg is on his way to Simon's place, Simon continues struggling with the handcuffs. At his house, Bash opens Simon's laptop and finds all Lily's edited images and fake identity. Desiree, feeling ignored, calls his attention to no avail. Simon eventually slips out of the handcuffs and tries breaking down the door, but he's too weak. Bash is still tweaking the laptop, frustrating Desiree until she gets up and leaves, teasing Bash about making his favorite cupcakes. Then, finally, Bash listens to her. Lily walks in and finds Simon pretending to be unconscious. When she takes a closer look, Simon trips Lily up and bolts out of the room. Lily grabs his leg, but he gets away and runs to the main door. Just then, Peg reaches the house, tired and panting. Simon tries opening the door, but Lily catches up to him. Peg tries talking to Simon through the door, but Lily changes her voice to match Simon's and refuses to let him in. While Simon struggles with Lily, Peg keeps apologizing and talking about how he left Desiree. Hearing no response, Peg admits Desiree dumped him. Ironically, Peg keeps talking through the intercom, but he doesn't look at the video feed showing Simon falling to the floor and struggling. Finally, he glances at the video and steps back surprised. He promises to come to Simon's rescue, but he falls as he tries to break the door down. Then, he realizes he knows where the spare key is. Breaking in, he grabs Simon by the arms and refuses to believe Lily's there, thinking she's a call girl. When the realization finally dawns on Peg, he runs away and tries hitting Lily's head with a pan, but she dodges. Peg loses his balance, and just when Lily's about to kick him, she gets updated. As it turns out, Bash is messing with Simon's laptop, changing parameters and modifying values. This gives Simon and Peg enough time to escape Lily's clutches while she's immobilized by the update. Simon has to retrieve his laptop, and Peg discloses Bash stole it, angering his friend. Peg proposes hiding in his house, but Simon insists on retrieving his laptop, knowing it's the only way to stop Lily. Before they can argue further, Lily screams, prompting them to run. Meanwhile, Bash finishes tweaking the laptop and checks the people partying downstairs. While Peg and Simon continue running with Lily in hot pursuit, Bash reveals Simon's girlfriend is faked, and their photos are edited. However, he also shows the guests some photos of him making fun of Simon. Desiree doesn't find this amusing. Lily catches up to Peg just as Bash updates her to a psycho call girl. Peg trips but manages to recover. He and Simon watch an immobilized Lily, with Simon talking about how things changed so suddenly. Peg points to Lily and asks Simon if he slept with that thing, but Simon emphasizes she's a girl. When Lily recovers, they run again. At Bash's party, Celia and Stanley arrive. He tries to make a move on her, but she pulls away. Stanley spots Simon's unsightly photos projected on the wall and laughs while Celia just gives him a disgusted look. As they near Bash's house, Simon and Peg stop to catch their breaths. Peg asks Simon if they're going to kill Lily, but Simon vehemently refuses. Instead, he's committed to fixing her as long as he gets his laptop back. Because Bash keeps modifying Lily's settings, she keeps freezing and updating, giving the two more time. Finally, they arrive at the party. Almost immediately, the partygoers laugh at Simon, confusing him. It's only until Peg directs Simon's eyes above does he understand why, and he dramatically unplugs the projector, but no one really cares. Eventually, Simon faces Bash. He demands he give back his laptop, but Bash taunts him with it. Outside the house, Lily screams as the latest update ends, drawing everyone's attention. Knowing there isn't much time left, Simon hastily rushes forward to punch Bash, but he gets shoved to the floor. Bash gets on top, punching the defenseless Simon. Lily enters the house and frantically calls for Simon. A guy calls her baby, so she punches him in the groin. She spots Desiree, sparking her anger as she accuses her of ruining Stacy's relationship. Desiree dismisses her until Lily marches forward and breaks a glass bottle, using it to scare the girl. Peg, who's been watching from the sidelines the entire time, is alerted and runs in Desiree's defense. He manages to shield her with his body when the bottle hits his shoulder, causing him to freak out and collapse. Meanwhile, Bash punches Simon until he's weak. He stands and gloats, making good on his promise as he changes Lily's relationship status. Now, Bash and Lily are together, forcing her to update. He sees Lily and is amazed that she showed up. Desiree crouches down, comforting Peg and calling him sweet. Celia points out that the injury is minor and he should be fine, but he feigns pain to keep Desiree's attention. Simon gets up dazed and snatches his laptop. Bash gives it away as he no longer needs it. His eyes locked on Lily while she's updating. Simon sees how much Lily's settings have changed and he realizes why she's acting out of control. Lily finishes updating and turns around, noticing Bash. Unaware of how much Lily hates the word, he calls her baby, triggering her anger. Ranting, she marches to him, and Bash walks away as he realizes how terrifying she actually is. He attempts to shield himself with Celia, but Simon pushes her out of the way, and they fall to the couch, where they share a tender moment. Lily slams Bash against the trophy cabinet. Eventually, it topples over them. When the guests lift the cabinet, they find trophies impaling both Lily and Bash. As they gather around debating what to do, Peg instigates panic by suggesting they run away instead of calling 911. After that, Simon takes Celia safely to her house. She asks him who Lily was, but he replies it's a long story. Then she pulls him in for a kiss and asks him to tell her later. When the dust has settled and everyone's back in school, Stanley discusses a new project for the club. Peg walks in the corridor and nags a guy who shows him a video of Lily, deleting it in the process. Desiree waits for Peg and speaks sweetly to him as they've started dating for real. Simon walks to the room where the club members are having a meeting. When Stanley questions his presence, Simon retorts that Stanley's sitting in a chair that's not for him. Surprised, Stanley moves away. As soon as Simon sits, Celia moves to elect him as club president. Having no objections, Simon assumes the position and begins telling everyone about the program he's working on.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.